This is Dave from DDC Studios, and I want to welcome you all to our very first episode here on our brand new YouTube channel. Um, and I think for our first episode, um, we really should kind of discuss a question that gets posed to me almost on a daily basis on social media. And that's, why in the world do I make mini comics? Um, and the answer is kind of twofold. Um, the very simple answer is quite simply because anyone can make a mini comic. Um, they're extremely easy and affordable to manufacture. Uh, Basically, if you've got a sheet of 8.5 by 11-inch printer paper, a pencil, and a pair of scissors, you can make a 6-page mini comic with that one sheet of paper. Um, or if you got a stack of printer paper, you can make a comic as big as you want to. Um, the other thing that I really like about them is the fact that there is literally no rules. When it comes to your typical style of comic book, um, there's kind of a set size. Your average page count may vary, but usually, you're looking at like a minimum of a 20-page comic, and on up, and there really isn't any room for necessarily experimentation as far as presentation of the book, how many, what size it is, all of that good stuff. There's just hundreds upon hundreds of different styles of mini comics that you can make. So I really, really like that freedom. Um, the other reason why I just absolutely love mini comics is the completely handmade feel of a mini comic. Um, I think I'm what you call a typical example of a person that manufactures mini comics. I handle all of the writing and the drawing. Um, Now, granted, Dylan does help me with character designs and plot elements for all of the books, but the actual execution of the book, that I do, um, I handle. I also myself take care of getting the print file ready to go, which I kind of lump lettering into getting the print file ready to go. Um, and then I actually print the comics myself. I collate all of the pages and the covers. I fold them. I staple them. And when they're sold, I package and ship them out all myself. So literally from the very beginning to the very end point where the book gets sent out to be put in the customer's hand, I am involved, basically 100%. And that's not to disparage other style comics, but the fact that is involved in making mini comics, to me, that's the purest form of comic book, and it's also the most personal. Because quite literally, my sweat goes into every single comic that gets put out. You know. Now that's kind of the short reason, or the reason why I chose the style of comic books that we make. Um, but how did I really get there? And honestly, the answer to that question is actually Wizard Comics back in the day. Because I'm an 80s and 90s kid. When my birth of actual comic collecting, I was comic reader since the very early 80s. But true, honest to God, comic collecting was basically the birth of Wizard magazine. And Image Comics. Well, there was actually an article that was usually published, just right before the price guide in Wizard magazine. I apologize, I can't remember for the life of me what the name of that column was, although it was one of the first columns I read every month. Um, I believe, was it maybe Palmer's Picks, I'm wanting to say, but basically it was an article that highlighted a self-published, almost like micro press type comic book. And quite often it was usually this new thing I'd never heard of at the time called a mini comic. I was familiar with the term ashcan, which kind of mini comics and ash cans kind of go hand in hand. Um, but it kind of taught me what the mini comic was, at the time. Once again, 8.5 by 11-inch sheets of paper, folded over, stapled, and Bob's your uncle. You got your comic. Um, and around about that time is when I also started going to the conventions um, here in Iowa, and the artist alley was kind of a 50-50 split. Half of the guys were making your traditional style comic books, graphic novels, what have you, with their prints. But then the other half was kind of what I always refer to as mini comics row, because it was anywhere from 3 to like a half a dozen dudes that had been making mini comics, so they'd have their stacks there, fairly inexpensive to buy. So I basically just almost on spec, pick up one of everything. Um, because at every convention I kind of made a beeline to those tables. Before I even looked at anything else, I got one of every single mini comic I could get my hands on. Because once again, these guys were so extremely passionate, and their love of what they were doing was just totally obvious. Because you never start out making mini comics with the dream of getting rich. Your dream is literally just to be able to get just one person to read your book. Um, like I kind of joke around, every time I sell, my very one issue of any comic I release, I feel like Rob Liefeld. I feel like Todd McFarlane. You know, to me, selling one book, I think feels actually just as good as selling a million. Maybe not quite that good, but I think you get my point. So just over the years, I kind of dabbled in making some mini comics, but never really, really seriously gave it any, gave it a serious go, other than just, distributing amongst my friends and what have you. But then a couple of years ago, uh, my son Dylan and I decided, you know what, we're going to sit down and we're actually going to start making some of our own comics. Because we've gotten friendly, myself especially, gotten friendly with some comic creators, indie creators, through social media, Twitter in particular. And automatically, my very first thought was, boom, okay, we're going to start making mini comics. Because I thought it would just be an awesome, fun little project for Dylan and I to do. Once again, if we sold, one book, hey, we're going to be doing awesome. If nothing else, it was just going to be something fun for Dylan and I to do. But strangely enough, we've actually had some fairly good success selling our books, which is just fantastic, because there's no better feeling than seeing a post of somebody online saying, "Hey, check out the package I got from DDC Studios. I absolutely love these books. Can't wait for the next ones to come out. Woohoo!" And all of that, because once again, I go right back to that feeling. Automatically, I'm freaking Todd McFarlane. Um, but I hope that kind of maybe answers that question as to why we make mini comics. Because I guess to make this extremely long-winded, almost 10-minute long story extremely short, is to put it as simply as humanly possible, because we love them. That's why, I love reading mini comics. I love making mini comics. I love talking about mini comics. Um, and that's why we do it. So I hope this was a little informative. I really want to thank everybody for taking almost 10 minutes out of their busy day to listen to me ramble about my all-time favorite style of comic books. So take care of yourselves, guys, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And we'll have another video up for you here in just a few days. Thanks a lot. Bye.